Hi everyone, this is Mary Beth at Barnes Sewing Center, and today we are going to show you do a video on the upgrade kit number 2 for the Solaris and the Luminaire. I hope you've had time to install it in your machine and have fun playing with it, and we're going to go through it step by step, starting with the sewing, embroidery, and my design center. So let's get started. When you have the upgrade in your machine, in the settings, you can go through and there are a couple new parts. There is one in the sewing side where there is an endpoint setting, and we're going to start with it off. And then as we go through, it will say on this screen on page 7 that your second kit is installed. And then on page 11, you have your wireless setup, and there is a new app for your phone, and you go through the system on your machine, or you can also go to the App Store for your smart device and download it there. So those are two new things that are in the settings page. The machine that I'm using here is a Luminaire 2. If you have the first Luminaire with the upgrade kits 1 and 2, when you would select the PDF manual, there would be a tab that said instruction guide for kit number 2. And then you can, this is for the Solaris, there's one for the Solaris, there's one for the Luminaire, but then you could also put it on a jump drive and print it out for you. In this machine, because it is already the Luminaire 2, it's already included in the regular pages of the manual. There are videos, there are new videos that show the new hexagon quilting border and the 2-color border, and also the new snap hoop frame. There are new videos for my design center about the selecting the inside or the outside of a design, and also in sewing there is a video for using the endpoint sticker. So there are new videos and there is new information in the manual. Okay, so what we're going to do the very first thing is the endpoint sticker. And a good project for that is if you are making a pocket, a rod pocket for hanging a quilt, and you want the machine to stop at the ends, so we're going to use the new endpoint sticker to do that. I have one finished here for you, but I'm also going to show you how to do that. So what we're going to do, endpoint stickers. Here is a page of the endpoint stickers. For the first one, I am going to stitch along the edge, and there are lines on the endpoint sticker that go for 1/4 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to put the center dot and the center line right along the edge of my fabric. I recommend having the sticker no more than 1.5 inches away from your stitching. I'm going to select the zigzag stitch. I'm going to lengthen it a little bit and stitch. Okay, and now I have to tell the machine that we are going to use the endpoint sticker. I'm going to close it, and now we are going to stitch. And it's important when you're stitching that you do not cover up the sticker with your hands so that the machine can see it. Look at that. How cool is that? That is so cool. Okay, so now the other way you can use the endpoint sticker . I have to go into my settings. On page 3, I want to turn the endpoint setting temporary stop on. Say OK. I'm selecting the endpoint sticker. You have a choice of whether you want the design. This is if you were using decorative stitch. If you wanted to end at the end of a decorative stitch, since we are doing a straight stitch, we don't have to change any of that. And we're going to hit close. So now we're going to start here. And we're going to sew along. The machine is going to tell me to remove the endpoint sticker because we don't want to stitch on it. And there, it's stitched right to the edge. Isn't that cool? That is just so neat. So that is the new part on the sewing side of the machine, and I hope you try and use that a lot because it's a good feature. Okay.
Whoa, where did I come from? Hi guys, it's Melissa here. I just wanted to jump in really quickly and just expand on what Mary Beth was talking about with the end point sewing stickers and using a decorative stitch. So, let's go. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to my character and decorative stitch menu. And I have all these different menus up here to choose from. I'm going to go to menu number 10. And we'll just choose this stitch right here, number 1005. Okay, just this nice little leaf pattern. So I have to go up to my little kind of options up here. It shows a little pencil. And here's where I can choose my endpoint sewing. Now down at the bottom, I have two different options, but you'll notice this one here is grayed out. So this first option here is the machine's going to sew down until I tell it where I want to stop. But because this pattern is a little bit longer, it actually cannot recalculate it to finish the stitch. So there's some decorative stitches that you may choose where it actually, this option here on the side is grayed out. So it's just going to stop wherever it happens to be in the pattern, but it's going to stop exactly where you want it to. It just may not finish the pattern. So now, if I choose maybe a different stitch here, so let's choose stitch number 10-19. So it asks if I want to cancel that endpoint setting. This is something you'll see as you turn the endpoint setting feature on and then try to choose another stitch. It always makes you cancel out of that setting. At least for now, it makes you do that. So I'll say, okay, I want to cancel out. And then again, I'm going to choose that stitch 10-19, which are these simple little leaves. Now if I go back to my pencil up here in the upper right hand corner, right below my home, and choose my endpoint sewing, I now will have both options open. So the first option is it's just going to sew down and it's going to stop exactly where I tell it to, but it may be in the middle of the pattern. This second option here is actually going to recalculate the stitch length so it finishes the decorative stitch that I chose and ends right where I tell it to. So I've placed my endpoint sewing sticker so it's matched up with this dark line that I've drew across my fabric. That's exactly where I want my stitching to stop. So I'm still on that decorative stitch 10-19, and I'm going to turn my endpoint sewing sticker on. And the first option I want to choose is that option on the right that shows the finished decorative stitch. So it shows the two little flowers, and the red dot is at the very end of the flower. So it's going to finish this decorative stitch for me. So you may notice right away, there's kind of this bluish line going across, which is the camera that's recognizing that line that I've told it I want to stop at. And then it's also a little bit darker above the sticker, which may be kind of harder to see. But as Mary Beth said, do not put your hand over that sticker. So remember, as you're guiding your fabric, and do not cover up that endpoint sewing sticker. The machine naturally slowed down for me because it's getting closer to the end of my fabric. So as you can see, the stitching stopped exactly where I asked it to, and it did finish that decorative leaf pattern for me. You may notice a little bit of different in size with certain patterns because it does have to recalculate the size of the stitch pattern in order for it to end exactly where you've asked it to. So I have another sample here. And in this pattern on the right here, you can see the size of the pattern. And as we go down, right about in this area, the pattern just gets slightly smaller. Maybe it's a little hard to tell, but the pattern may slightly just change size in order for it to finish that pattern when it gets to the end. Now here's a sample of where I told it to not necessarily finish the pattern, just stop wherever you happen to be in the design. And then same thing over here, both of these were finishing the pattern, and this one right here was that option on the left, which just stops right where I tell it to, but it just happens to be wherever it is in the stitch pattern. So I'm going to show that next. So now in my end point setting, I've turned that feature on, but in those two options in the lower right hand corner, I'm going to choose the option on the left, which shows the two flowers, but the red dot, which is the end of my pattern, happens to be right in the middle of the flower. I want the stitches to stay the same length, and I want you to stop wherever you happen to be in the middle of the design. So here we go. So the sample that I have here shows the stitch on the right is with the choice on the right. My sample on the left corresponds with the button on the left, which shows the two flowers, but it stops in the middle of the pattern. So you have the two options here: finish the decorative stitch or stop wherever you happen to be in the decorative stitch. So those are your two options when you choose a decorative stitch in the end point settings. Now say I had a skinny ribbon like this that I wanted to sew a decorative stitch on. When I place that end point sewing sticker on, I really don't have any room to scoot the sticker to the left or the right without my foot moving straight forward and sewing right onto that sticker. So this is a scenario where I would want to go into the settings of my machine and I would want to turn that temporary stop on. It's on page 3 of your settings, way at the bottom. It's called Endpoint Setting Temporary Stop. I'm going to turn that feature on. Now I'll turn my endpoint sewing on. And I'm ready to sew down this piece of fabric. So I'm going to start a little bit higher up on the fabric just so we can see how it works. And remember, you don't want to cover up that sticker, so wherever you have to put your hand, so it doesn't cover up the little endpoint sewing sticker. So the machine stopped for me. On my screen here, the machine just tells me to go ahead and remove that endpoint sewing sticker and then continue on with my sewing. So I'm going to tell the machine okay. I'm going to remove that endpoint sewing sticker, and maybe you can see here there's still that blue line going straight across, which says it remembers where my sticker was, and it's still going to stop right where I want it to stop even though I've removed that sticker. And now you can see that it sewed beautifully down my piece of ribbon, and it stopped right at the end of the fabric, just like I asked it to. And yes, I did ask it to complete that decorative stitch, so I'm not stuck with half a decorative stitch there. So a scenario like this is when you would turn that endpoint sewing feature on only if you are not able to place that endpoint sewing sticker in an area where you won't sew over it. If it's a skinny area, you're going to have to turn that temporary stop on. Otherwise, just leave that feature off. The machine will stop for you. And then one more thing that I wanted to expand on with these endpoint sewing stickers are these extra little marks that are on the sticker. So from my dark line going horizontal across to this first little mark, it's 1/8 of an inch. From that dark line going across to the bottom of the sticker, that is 1/4 inch. So say I want to do some 1/4 inch sewing, and as I sew down my 1/4 inch seam, I want to stop and turn a corner 1/4 inch from the bottom of my fabric. So I'm going to place my sticker so the bottom of the sticker is lined up with the bottom of my fabric. So here's my square that I'm sewing together. I'm going to sew down 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then when I turn a corner here, I want to make sure that I'm stopping so when I turn, I'm still at 1/4 inch. So I can use my endpoint sewing sticker. I'm going to place it outside of my sewing area, and now instead of lining up that dot with the end of my fabric, I'm going to line up the bottom of the sticker with the end of my fabric. This dot in the middle is exactly where the sewing machine is going to stop, and like I said, that dot is 1/4 inch away from the end of the sticker. And then don't forget, before you start sewing, to go in and turn that endpoint sewing feature on. So the machine paused for me right where I told it to. So now I can lift my foot up. I'm going to remove that endpoint sewing sticker. And as I turn my corner, you can see I'm lined perfectly up with my 1/4 inch seam allowance again. Let's try that one more time. Place the sticker at the bottom of the fabric so the bottom of the sticker lines up with the end of my fabric. And here I go. Turn my corner, remove my sticker, and perfectly lined up. What a great way to use your endpoint sewing stickers.
Okay, the next thing that is new in the machine is that there are 50 new embroidery designs in section number 15. So we can open that up and see the new designs that are included in the upgrade kit. Any of you who saw my trunk show in December, I made a tree skirt using these Christmas designs. Here is a design that we have a flower that can be put in the center, and then next to it, or right before it, there is a frame that goes around the flower. I have it stitched out here. You can see the flower and then the frame that went around the flower. Okay, another design in here. We have a hexagon tropical design. I'll talk about this again in a little bit. But here it is stitched out, and later we're going to talk about the hexagon border. Here's another one that's stitched out. This is one that you can mirror image and make two sides. You can see on the screen that it has two colors, but I stitched it out. Can you see here? This is half, and here's the other half, and I did it in one color. And I just folded over the back. I will add a pillow to it to make it a pillow. It's a pillow sham. Okay. Another one. This one is simply gorgeous. This one, if you can see the colors that it's used, it has blues and reds and greens. And I use this number 42, 43, and 44. And here it is. This is number 42. This is the first one that went around. I repeated it 4 times, and then 43 is a little piece, and then 44 is the corner pieces. So we multiplied that and put it. Look at the large design you can make from those 3 sections. Okay. And here's another one. You have a choice of 2 centers, and then there is a left side and a right side. Okay, and here you can see, we'll select the center. There is the center stitched out here, and then the right side and the left side. You can stitch around it. Another new addition, if you select section 5, buttonholes. We're going to select number 6, and if you look down at the bottom, it's the first one that is selected is large. If I go to the left, I have medium, small, super small, and extra small. So it comes in 5 sizes now instead of 3. So I'm going to set this. I'm going to choose edit. I'm going to move, and I'm going to move it up a ways. Okay, add. I'm going to select super small and set it. Edit, move it up. We're just guesstimating here. Add again. Small, set, move. This is just a fun little activity that you could do with the buttonholes. Wait. Oh, we'll just move that one down. And I'm going to rotate this one 90 degrees, move it down, and I made a little Christmas tree. I stitched it out on fabric and then taped it, and you can make Christmas cards with the buttonhole designs. And then you can see the sizes of the different size buttonholes that are in the machine now. Okay. I have 6 different settings here. I could go delete, delete, delete 6 times, or if you remember, I have a multiple selection tool. I can select all of them, say OK, and then delete, and the whole thing goes away. Okay, the next thing that is new on the machine in the quilting borders, we now have a dual color where you have 2 different colors that you can choose from. You can see there's a light gold and a dark gold here, and I did that. Let's see how this can show up on the camera. If you can tell that there are 2 different colors thread here. There's a lighter gold and a darker gold that I used around the edges. And then back to the then we also have a hexagon, and I chose that one. And what you need to do with the hexagon is you put in, let's hold it this way, you put in the size of the design from the outside of the hexagon down, and you set that, and then the machine measures out the exact spacing to put the border around the hexagon. So this is another project, design built into the machine, that you can try also the new hexagon border function. Okay. Another thing that we can do is we can adjust the density of a scanned image. The fabric I have here is rather light. I am going to, from our new designs, select a frame. Here it is right here. Select this frame to stitch out on my material. I'm going to set it. I'm going to scan my fabric. I touched the camera, and I'm going to scan it. And we're going to see what it looks like. Okay, it looks pretty good here. If I didn't like it, you can see there might be, I don't know if you can tell on the camera, it's a little darker to the right than it is to the left, but the machine already chose to have it on its darkest setting because it was a light fabric. If I didn't like that, I could touch this and lighten it up a little and see if the fabric looked better or lighten it up even more. So this is also new in your upgrade, that you can lighten up or darken up the image of your scanned fabric so you can see it better on the screen of your machine. So that's something new. Also, another thing new in the machine is sewing order. And I'm going to select, nope, we'll do B. We're going to take B for Barnes, and we're going to set that. And I want to also add stippling to this. So what I'm going to do, I have to select the larger frame. Thank you. Okay, I'm selecting the frame. And I can select the outside of the frame, but I can also select the inside of the frame. And I'm going to increase the distance away Okay, I'm going to put this in memory. It's going to tell me that it went over into my design center in the stamp pattern list. I'm going to say okay. So I'm going to add. I'm going to go to my design center, stamps. And here it is right here. I'm going to select that, bring it in. And I want to stitch this in a 9.5 inch square. So I selected the square, I'm going to size it, and I'm going to size it, increase proportionally to about 9.5 inches. Okay. I do not want stitching around the edge, so I'm going to select no stitch. I'm going to take my bucket and touch the outside so that there is no stitching. Then I'm going to go to fill. I'm going to select stippling. I'm going to take the bucket and I'm going to fill outside and inside. I'm going to hit next. Another thing that is new with stippling is that I can select whether I want it to be a single stitch or a triple stitch. Before it was just a single stitch. So we're going to keep it at a single stitch. I'm going to increase the size a little bit. I'm going to set it, and I converted it. So now I have my frame, my letter, and my stippling. Well, I don't want my stippling on top of the lettering. So in Edit, I have a new feature. I can change the order of embroidery. And the frame is, the stippling is highlighted. I want to set it so that it is in the middle. So I'm going to do the frame, the stippling, and then the letter on top of the stippling. So I have my order of how it's going to be stitched. Isn't that fun? It's so fun. Okay, and again, I have 3 designs here. I'm going to multiple select all of it and delete it all. Okay. One other thing that we can do, I'm going to just select a design here. A new thing that is also added is how much we can magnify to look at the design. We added all the way up to 400%. Okay, and then you take the pan, okay, and you can move it, and so then you can see different parts of the design. Oh, one more feature that we can do is, we will select a in Edit, we can also now select decorative fills that were just originally in my design center. Originally, we could only do stipple or echo stitching, but now we can also select a fill from my design center and put that around the design in Embroidery Edit. Isn't that pretty? And then you can choose what size frame that you're going to be stitching in. And again, you can change the size of the fill just like you can in my design center. So there are a lot of options that are on Embroidery Edit now, so you don't have to go over to my design center. Okay. Excellent. Alrighty, now we are in my design center. And the new features that are in this part of the machine, we have, first I'm going to make a square here. I'm going to increase it proportionally. Yeah, that's good. And I do not want it stitched. I'm going to touch the bucket and that. Okay, in the fills, we had 36 fills before, and now we have added 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, and 42. So we have 6 new fills that we can play with in my design center. I'm going to select in open shapes a flower, and I'm going to increase that in size proportionately to about 9.5 inches. Okay, good. The outsides of the flower, we are going to do number 7. Okay, I'm going to select red, and I'm going to take the bucket, and I'm going to touch each section of the flower. So we have it stitched. The actual stitch will not show until we go over into the next frame. I'm going to select one of the new fills to put in the flower. Oh, let's just pick this one. And we'll take pink. And then I'm going to select the bucket, and I'm going to fill in the flower with the new fill pattern. And now I'm going to say next. Here we are. I'm going to increase the size to 125, hit OK. And then in random shift, we used to have 3 different steps. Now we have 6 steps, and we also have 3 different types, which changes where the random shift starts. We're going to keep them all on A. So this first one, I'm going to do random shift 1. You can see how it's a little wavy, and I'm going to do single thickness for stitching. Okay, I'm going to select the next square, and again, we're going to do 125. I'm going to random shift 2. We're going to keep these all on A. And you see how it's a little bit more wavy. Single stitch. I'm going to select the next one. This is the center, and because it's a smaller area, I'm going to put it down to 80%. And if you follow me, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is going to be random shift 6. So I'm going to go all the way over to 6 for that one. And you can see how it has moved. To the next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is number 5. We're going to do 125%. Random shift 5. Single stitch. And one more. We have 3, and we'll give 2 more. And the last one. Random shift 4. Single. And there we have it. And then the last one is the decorative stitch on the outside of the petals, and I'm going to leave it as it is. So we are going to set the machine. And here we have our flower. Okay, we're going to embroider. Here is the design stitched out with a different fill, or so you could see the different areas of the random shift. And you could put Insulbright underneath this and make it into a mat in the center of your table where you could put your casserole on it, or you could also put a flap back on it and put a pillow frame inside it. So these are some ideas that you can do, but it's nice to see the different degrees of random shift in one area. You could even go through and make all 42 of them and make a quilt out of them. It's interesting to watch the machine to see how it decides to stitch it out. It's not stitching it out in the order that we made the design. Okay, here we have our finished design of one of the new fills with the 6 different random shifts that are now available in my design center. It's a fun activity, something quick that you can do on one of these winter days, but I have even a larger challenge for you. If we go into my design center, we have the 6 new fills and we have 6 new random shifts. So if you wanted to make yourself a small quilt, you could do fill number 1 and random shift it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and do that with each of it, so each of the new fills, so you would have a quilt. Let's see if we can get this in the camera here. Okay, so we have random shift 1, and then you have 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we have all random shifts in a row, and each of the new fill designs going down in a row. So we have 6 by 6. This, I just went into my scrap bag and found fabrics that went together and stitched out a nice little quilt top. And I sewed the squares together first, put the batting and the backing, so you can also see a nice stitch embroidered through all 3 layers at one time. And then I finished it with the 2-color border that was new from this upgrade. So we have this as a challenge for you. You can do any size squares you want. but I just chose these because that's the size I had in my scraps. Another project that you could do in my design center. Most of you have probably watched Angela Wolf on Brother Sews, and she made up these little recipes. And so she took, we're going to take a square, and we're going to size it. Let's size it to about 8 inches. Okay, right here. Put it in the memory of the machine because I'm going to use it several times. Okay, I'm going to take fill number 16. I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to select next. I'm not going to play with it because I want to do this quickly, and I'm going to set it. So we have one fill. Then I'm going to add my design center, go to the pocket. I'm going to take my square, going to go to the fills, and I'm going to select number 42, hit OK, fill, and then set it and put it on top of it, and you make a new design. And she had about 4 different recipes, and I added a few to what she did. But here you can see this is this one right here stitched out. And these are just 2 fills that have been layered on top of each other to make more fills. So this is another activity that you can have fun with playing with My Design Center. Another activity that I played with in My Design Center is I brought in a square and I increased it, so I have 2 squares. I brought in a circle and I have 2 circles. I brought in the little flower and then an open design in the center. And I made one, took them over into Embroidery Edit, used the multiplication tool and multiplied them and lined them up so I have a little pillow sham here. And then this was one of the new fills in My Design Center that I added around the outside. Another fun project that you can do with the upgrade in your machine. And then the last one I have here, here's a big project because now we have 42 fills. A layer cake has 42 squares in it. So I took the layer cake and stitched them all together. And then in every square, I stitched the squares together, put the 2 borders on, put my batting and my backing all together, and then using a snap hoop in each square, I did something different with each one of the fills. I might have changed the size, the random shift, the thickness of the thread, the distortion, all different things. I moved the rotation, I moved them around, and so this was just a fun activity to play with all the things that you have in My Design Center. Okay, and then one last thing in the upgrade that we need to mention is the new Snap app. Okay, this is it right here. And if I touch that, it would ask me for my machine's name. I would put that in, and then you can go to your photos, and if you have an image in your photos, it will take that image and transfer it to the screen in My Design Center. It's a template that you can draw over and play with to make your own design. think we have it all covered. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have any questions, you can call the store. Some of the samples will be in the store for you to come in and look at. Play the video over and over again. And hopefully this summer we will have in-person classes again. Thank you.